Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around.
We are so excited about this episode for a few reasons. First, we are officially halfway through our season of MHM. So thank you, listeners, for being on this journey with us and helping us carry out our mission of helping people feel seen and heard and less alone. Yay.
Yay. HB and I have had so much fun doing this, and we cannot wait to keep going. That being said, we are going to honor our own needs, schedule, and lives and practice what we preach by taking a summer break. So this is not goodbye. This is just, we'll be back soon, out of office. But to celebrate our mid-season point and the journey we've come on thus far, we have some amazing guests with us. I'm so excited. So without further ado, let's get into it. And Allie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Allie. I'm also known on the interwebs as Regal Rain Cosplay. I have been a party princess for 6 years. Still can't believe it's been that long. And for the last year and a half of that, I have owned my own princess company, which has been super awesome, called Something Royal Party Company. Also a cosplayer as well. Love going to conventions, Renaissance fairs, all that jazz. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Let's go to Meg.
Hi.
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, my name is Meg, also known as Megara Hope Cosplay online. I'm an actress, cosplayer, streamer, and panic attack in a person, as I describe myself to my streams. I was also a party princess for about 8 years. I am full into focusing on my acting career at the moment. Not at the moment, this is my career. I gotta do it now.
But today you woke up and you chose it. So that's good.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I have been a Disney gal through and through since I was little. Beauty and the Beast was my first Broadway show when I was like 2 or 3 years old, and that's what jump-started my love of performing. So it's kind of gotten us to where we are here. I'm wearing my shirt that says strong female lead on it, which I think was a appropriate for today's episode, and I'm excited to jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Amber. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Gordon, and I am not a cosplayer, but I do enjoy a good Renaissance fair, and I am through and through a theater kid.
Yeah.
Been doing theater since I was little, all the community theater, all that stuff. Thought I wanted to be in musical theater. And then I realized like how hard it is. So Meg, like hats off to you. It's definitely a struggle, but so is being a therapist and a coach, which is what I am. So I am a trained marriage and family therapist. I am also in the coaching space as well. And my qualifications in terms of Disney were that, going through undergrad and graduate and up until fairly recently, I was a full-time nanny as well as a full-time student and a full-time therapist because, we got to pay those bills, y'all. So I have watched a lot of Disney, loved a lot of Disney. And it's definitely something that is near and dear to my heart. And since becoming better friends with Marissa, I have had finally somebody to like peel back the layers and talk about all of the hidden themes and juiciness that is actually within all of these stories and tales and characters. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Yay! Thank
We're
you
so
so
excited
much for
to have
coming.
you all. Yay.
Yes.
Whee!
Yes. And the way that I know Meg and Allie is we met online, like on Instagram. And it's I feel like I say that
good,
for
good
every
makeup
guest.
collabs.
Yes, it's like every guest we've ever had. It's like Heather's never met them in person. She only knows them on Instagram.
That's okay. I've never
but-
met Marissa in person either. So
And I haven't met Heather,
Whoa.
so it's
Yeah.
a theme. It's a vibe.
Incredible.
Remember that time where your parents tell you don't talk to people you met on the internet? Our generation said, fuck that.
we really did.
Truly.
We were
all
like,
of my friends are on the internet.
Yes. But yeah, so it was like during lockdown, and there was this group of cosplayers that started a makeup collaboration, and it was just a bunch of cosplayers who wanted reason to, and wanted to feel good and wanted to like, get into cosplay or do makeup or just do something fun. And so Meg and Allie were both part of that. So that's how we know each other.
We have
Very
some really
exciting.
good ones going on. I
really
get
did.
them in the like my Facebook memories a lot now, and I'm
Memories.
like, oh yeah, those came out
We
really
were doing
cool.
at one point we were doing them weekly because we were like it was lockdown. You had nothing else to do.
Yep. I just
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
they tried to do like drawing them out of a hat so we wouldn't like fight over who got what. And we did one all about musicals. And I am a ABBA Mamma Mia girly through and through. That is one of my favorite shows. And that was the one that got drawn out of the hat for me. And everybody was like, oh boy, here we go.
Perfection.
It was great.
There was
Yeah.
a lot of glitter.
Oh, Mamma Mia. Here we go again.
They're making a third one.
I did not
Gonna
know
go
that.
cry in a movie theater again.
Well, speaking of how we know our guests, Amber and I have known each other, similarly since 2020. I was joining a group business coaching program, and Amber did my discovery call, and it was like friendship at first sight.
Yeah, you had just gotten Reggie.
I had just gotten Reggie.
And he was terrorizing your house.
He was terrorizing. In the background, she could see Reggie jumping up on counters. I'd be like, Reggie, no, I'm in the middle of the thing. And I had to like grab him, put him in my lap, and he'd run away, jump up on the thing again.
I was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
They're all welcome here.
So we've been through, it's been 3 years now. We've been through business coaching programs together. We built like a little group thing last year, and we've worked together on so many projects. At one point we were seeing each other every week, if not twice a week, for hours on end.
Many hours. Many hours. It's
hours.
Entrepreneur life. Am I right, y'all?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've been through, Amber and I have been through so much together. And even though we haven't met in person, I do feel like we are soul sisters in some way. And I'm really excited that you were able to do this. I know it was kind of last minute when I asked you, so I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here.
That's fine. I've like been fangirling over this like podcast since y'all like put it out. And so like I was like, yes, perfect. My opportunity. It's like somebody can't make it. You need me. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Your heroine of the day. And speaking of, that has been the topic of our first season thus far, has been empowering Disney heroines. And so if I can put you all on the spot and ask you each who your favorite Disney heroine princess is, even if we haven't talked about them yet, we'd love to know. So Allie, who is your favorite?
Always is going to be Anna.
And why?
I love her spunk, and she doesn't have any fear of being herself. And that's what she kind of gives me, in a way of letting myself be fun and crazy and just whatever. I don't have to put on an act for anybody. And I love her story. Frozen is her movie, not Elsa's. And I will stand by that until the day I die. And it's hard to explain. I really respect that character and the journey she goes on, and the journey she continues to go on in the second movie as well. And even though all of the kids gravitate towards Elsa at all times, she really is the star of that show.
I agree.
I would agree. Yeah.
Because technically Elsa's the damsel in distress. Anna's the savior, man. Like Anna's the one that actually does all the hard, heavy lifting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
but gets
with,
no
like,
good
rejection and abandonment, and then like, family secrets. Like, geez, like, yeah.
Death.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Olaf dies in her arms. Like, Jesus.
God. Yes. She does have
strong.
What's that song? The Next Right Thing. That song.
Yes.
Weep.
It's a beautiful song.
I can't listen to it.
But we need some more upbeat songs for my girl, please and thank you.
We truly, yes.
Jesus.
We do. She gets a lot of sad songs.
A lot of downers.
I never really thought about that. That's such a good point.
Nothing I can sing at parties, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was like, that's like a real big, actually, like underdog story. Really, it's like the unrealized, like, talk about not
Unsung
being able to
hero.
get the pat on the back or the credit, man. Like, you're doing all this hard work, and everyone's like, but Elsa.
Yep.
But Elsa has the powers, and she does go through her own journey. But like,
Oh,
Anna,
absolutely, she
man.
does.
Anna,
Yeah.
dang, yeah, definitely.
Underappreciated.
Yes.
Another point that I wanted to bring up, she is like one of the few princesses that like actually has a sibling relationship, because like Ariel has all of her sisters, but they are nowhere in that movie.
Yeah. Not to be
No.
seen.
And it's
Yeah.
weird because the other day I like to watch like the sequels and the prequels to the original content. Heather's like, why do you do
Yes.
this to yourself? But I watched the Little,
Little
Mermaid
Mermaid 2 is
one.
the best.
It's so good.
I've
But
never
then
seen it.
Oh,
I-
it's so good.
HB, come on.
Second one's great. Third one's meh.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
I'm gonna
Ariel's
tell you what
beginning is like,
happens
it was
in
weird, but that's when like you see Ariel's origin story, and then you like her sisters are more involved, and it's just like it's weird. It's like they don't feel like sisters, like they just, and it could be because there's so many of them. It could be because Ariel's the baby. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
see what you mean about the sibling
Even
relationship.
in the animated series, like there was very few intertwining with her sisters. So I'm like,
the sisters didn't
where is?
need to be in the movie, honestly. It could have just been Ariel by herself, because it's not like the sisters band together to save Ariel at any point. It's Triton versus Ursula. I haven't really
Yep.
thought about that.
They
Interesting.
just
But we
they
needed a
needed
background
that
chorus.
the analogy for the seven
Yeah.
seas. That's what they
That's
needed.
all it was.
That's a good point.
Wow.
Meg, what about you?
My namesake, Megara from Hercules. I know you've spoken about her on the podcast in the past. Actually, my top 3 you've already spoken about, so make sure you go back and listen to those other episodes, folks. But Megara, her sass, her independence, her just her feisty heart, that it has this other layer of softness, of heartbreak, of she fights through all of this stuff. She's being told what to do constantly by Hades. She stands up for herself to a point, but like, he's a god. There's only so much she can do. And just the idea that she fell in love on her own terms. And she was able to she's just such this strong, beautiful character. And I think she just wraps it all up of, I'm a damsel, I'm in distress, I can handle it. Have a nice day. That whole thing. And I think that's the whole thing. I tie my own shoes and everything. I literally could sit here and go through the entire movie if I wanted to. But I have such a strong connection to her, not just because of her name, but because of watching it with my older sister growing up. Like, we would wear that VHS tape out, like when that VHS was a thing.
Yes. We're dating ourselves now.
I know.
Like, yeah.
But Megara, she's up there. She's my number one gal. I love her. Princess wise, I'd say Rapunzel and Tiana are my 2 girls. But like, if we're going full everyone, it's Meg.
Yeah.
And Amber, what about you?
So I love my girl Merida, like love. I think that this is like one of the things where like growing up, like I'm a little bit older than y'all, I think. Like an elder
so.
millennial. And so I didn't really resonate with a lot of the Disney princesses that I was exposed to growing up. So that would have been like Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, that Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like didn't really like resonate. And then it was actually one of the few times my family went all together to the movies when I was a little bit older. We went and we saw Brave. And I was like, all right, Disney, now we're getting it together. Like this is pretty freaking cool. And I just loved like wild, unruly, like, I'm gonna like march to the beat of my own drum, family disapproval be damned. Like, and also because of that tenacity, because of that willingness to, go off the beaten path, like that was actually what ended up saving the day and like people's lives, so I think that it's a really beautiful story about a literal illustration of like intergenerational trauma, aka curses, and things like that, and just also what beauty and magic there is when you really decide to align with your truth and stick to it, right? Because like we're all given a specific, purpose, mission, character traits, all that stuff, so that we can do what we're here to do. And I think that character in particular really exemplifies that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was late to the Brave train. I don't know
Well,
why.
welcome aboard.
Yeah. I watched Brave for the first time in like 2019. I can't remember when it came out, but yeah, I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah.
Are you really?
Yes, really. Yes, really. Same
What?
time I watched Rapunzel and Ray and Brave. It was like is that when Disney Plus came out? I can't remember. I think it
About,
was like
yeah.
right when Disney Plus came out is when I finally watched all the Disney movies that I had never seen before, just because I didn't see them in theaters.
The first thing I watched on Disney Plus was Hamilton.
Yes,
Ayo.
same.
Love
And
that
I
you
haven't
finally got on the
stopped.
Brave train, but yeah, I was watching Hamilton on repeat.
One of my favorite princessing moments actually involves Brave in a way. Meg, you were half there for this. I think I might have told you about it afterwards. But
Oh,
it
I know what
was
you're talking about. Yes.
yes. So Meg and I both used to work for the same company. And I was leaving. I was moving away, going to start my own business, that sort of thing. And that summer, or usually in the summers, they would do like a day camp with a different princess every day. And I was the assistant that day. There were only 2 little girls for that session, and Meg was Merida. And at the end of the day, Merida had gone home back to Scotland, and I'm just out in the like the yard area of the building we were in. The kids are running around, and I'm sitting there in this beautiful sunshine. I am moving on to this next passage of my life, and as they're running around into the open air, which is like the song that plays when like Merida's like in the river with her mom, like doing the fishing and all of that is playing. And I'm like, could this be more perfect? It was so, I almost sat there and cried, and these kids would have stared at me, but I was like, and it was just on shuffle. Like it happened. I was like, this is the most beautiful moment. These 2 little girls just running around in the sunshine in their Merida dresses, having the best time. And I'm like, and I'm leaving. All right.
I also I didn't know that those types of camps like existed. This gives me like hope for when I have children, because I'm like, where am I going to send my like most likely neurospicy, rule breaking, march to the beat of their own drum? There's freaking Merida camp. That's great.
We did one day where it was a Star Wars day, but like no kid understood Star Wars. I was there as Rey, and no, the poor director of the camp tried to explain like who Luke, Leia, and Vader, all of that was in like 5 minutes. Did not work. There was a point where they weren't quite sure who I am, but they referred to me as Princess Rey for the most of the day. And I'm like, man, I'll take it. Gimme.
Princess Rey.
Meg, you reminded me that I did not list our previous topics. So as Meg said, we have talked about your top 3, Megara, Tiana, and Rapunzel. And thank you for the plug for referring people back to those episodes.
Go on back. Go back.
So for those of y'all who don't know or haven't listened to our podcast thus far, these are the princesses we've talked about. Or heroines, excuse me. We've talked about Moana, which was HB's favorite princess, Mulan, who was my favorite, Megara, Rapunzel, Esmeralda, Cinderella, Pocahontas, Tiana, and most recently, Snow White. Just kidding. After this episode, or before this episode, Ariel. Ariel will have been our most recent princess.
Yes.
So in a lot of these episodes, we've talked about, empowering takeaways from our favorite characters from the movie. So Meg, I know you have to go soon, so I'm going to ask you first.
Sure.
Is Hercules your favorite Disney movie because Megara is your favorite heroine? If so, what are some empowering takeaways you've gotten from the movie? And if not, what is your favorite movie and what are some empowering takeaways?
Ooh.
Dang, now I have to think.
So 100% Hercules is my favorite Disney movie. It is one of my favorite movies overall. It is one of my comfort movies. a couple week like a month ago, planets aligned very similarly to how they do in Hercules. So I went, guess what I'm putting on? So put it on, and I automatically feel so good. A lot of the takeaways, not just with Meg, but with Herc himself, are becoming more of just a stronger you and being you. And sometimes you go off that path, and that's it. You see it in Hercules with Zero to Hero, where he thinks he's going on the right path to become this strong god, this immaculate being, and he's going off the beaten path because he's doing what he thinks he needs to do rather than what he actually has to do. And I think these stories are just so special in the sense of finding who you are as a person. And what I think is special about Meg is Meg knows who she is. Meg knows that she is this strong, independent woman. She's obviously, again, had her heart broken, and I love this movie so much that my brain just goes,
that's all we needed was
it's just so special. And like kind of what Amber was saying, the princesses, we grew up in the Renaissance, is that was when we were young, that we had Ariel, we had Belle, and all of these. Like, you take away the princes, you take away everything, you can get a strong female character from every single one of these princesses, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. I don't want to hear no she needed the prince. She did not. I could tell you one thing about every single princess if I wanted to.
Yes.
But I think that's why Meg she was just so different. Her sass, she stood up to people in a lot of the other princesses are very soft and in their way of commanding, where Meg was loud and she was proud about it. And I think that, as someone who also is neurospicy and was very loud and rambunctious, I think she was very special. And as we were talking about it, I was trying to think, I was like, who on this list, who haven't you guys talked about? And someone that kind of reminds me of a mini Meg is Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes.
A very loud and
Absolutely.
proud girl who loves being who she is. But if we go back kind of to the mental health track, the depiction of mental health with Vanellope and her glitches, you could do a whole episode just on that, and you should. But she's just to see the parallels between my favorite characters are just these strong, independent girls. Is special. So yeah, back to your question, because the neurospicy made me go off track.
You're on track. You're good.
Hercules, favorite movie. It's empowering. It's not necessarily accurate to Greek mythology, but it's
close enough for Disney standards.
Close enough for Disney standards. We don't have to talk about Zeus. But yeah, it's like all of the female characters in there are special and loving, and I think that's the number one, is that every single female character that you guys have talked about in your podcast that you have yet to talk about is at their core just a loving, beautiful character. And I think it's very special that we get to grow up in a time where these characters exist in the way that they do.
That was so beautiful.
Yeah.
No, truly.
Very, very beautifully said.
Thank you.
You should do a TED Talk. That was great.
You should start a podcast. Truly, no, that's such a good point. And that's exactly why that was like definitely the inspiration behind this first season was, you know, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. There's a lot of stigma around Disney adults. There's a lot of stigma, especially around Disney princesses, because a lot of people are like, they're just damsels in distress waiting for people to save them. And as we pointed out in a lot of our episodes, and especially with Meg, like absolutely fucking not. Like they are like, maybe the princes gave them the opportunities to, you know, take control and have a little bit more choice and autonomy and take power into their own hands. But at the end of the day, it was them doing 100%. The saving of themselves, saving the princes, saving the world, you know? So, you know.
I also feel like most of the princesses that we've at least talked about so far, most of the heroines that we've talked about so far have done a lot of the like actual physical saving of someone else too.
Oh,
When
100%.
speaking
Meg
of, like-
literally pushes Herc out of the way and takes a falling column to the body. Like,
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, but Herc saves her from the underworld. She didn't. Okay, first of all,
the
she like
reason
didn't want.
she's there is to save him. Like,
Right. Like it's great,
Yeah.
that she lives and stuff, but like she also did it. She sacrificed herself knowing that she might not
yeah,
come
exactly.
back from that, and so she saved him 100%.
I'm gonna hop off, and I cannot wait to hear what Allie and Amber have to say the rest of the podcast, and I look forward to hearing the rest of it. I will talk to you guys later.
Thank you so much. It was so
Bye.
nice to meet you.
Nice
Have a
to
good
meet
one.
you.
Amber. Who? Your turn.
Mulan, hands down, Mulan, and not just because it's your favorite, Marissa, and I love you so much, but like that is one of those movies where like I have a like hype playlist, and like I'll Make a Man Out of You is like on this hype playlist. Like
Yes.
there's something about like I can be like down in the dumps being like, I can't do anything right, like this is horrible, right? And it's like, let's get down to business, and I'm like, okay, you're right, we can do this.
You're right.
And I think about that, I'm like, if Mulan can leave her family without their permission, right, and like
Ayo.
chop off her beautiful, beautiful hair and go and disguise herself and put herself through all of these like grueling tasks to essentially like save her family's honor, basically like single-handedly defeat the freaking Huns, like, and like I'm sorry,
Single-handedly.
single-handedly, and like that the Huns, that whole part of they're freaking scary, yo. Like you think Scar is scary, you think Jafar is scary, like no, like I'm blanking on his name now, but the leader
Shan
of the
Yu?
Huns, Shan Yu, thank you so much. With
They
his,
tried to
like,
have a walkabout of him at Disney World.
right? Oh God, yeah. But like
No, so
terrifying,
scary.
absolutely terrifying. Like
scary.
I remember seeing that as a child and I was like, oh my God, don't come for me, please. The bird I thought was kind of cool, even though he was, creepy too. But real, I was like, wow, like you really are not gonna freaking give up. You have like everybody against you, everybody telling you you can't, no one believes in you. You're literally like covert ops. The man who you secretly love, who also secretly loves you too, like you're risking him ever caring about you or being able to be with you. Like that to me is like you are putting yourself and what you feel to be right above everything else. And I know you guys talked about this in the episode, and it really is one of those things where in terms of like, yes, I love Merida and I love Brave. It's a really great movie. But in terms of like the one that really kind of like lights my fire, it's going to be Mulan, hands down, every day, all day. Love me some Mulan.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the bird, just because in our Snow White episode I mentioned how it's so interesting that the heroines or the princesses are always associated with like fuzzy cute forest creatures and like the little bluebirds, and then the villains are always like vultures and ravens and hawks and like
And
Hyenas.
crows. Yeah.
yeah. It's so funny. I love your answer, not just because it's my favorite princess, but I all of the things you said, all of the things we talked about in the episode, I think Mulan was kind of the like end of that Renaissance era where we were finally like straying away from I'm a pretty princess, and like not that they were damsels in distress either, because in the Cinderella episode we go into all of those myths and stuff, but
yeah,
I think it was less about like, oh, look at how pretty and look at the animation. It was more about like, this lady is gonna fuck up some people.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I also like as a therapist, like a big part of what I do is identity work, and like just like that theme song of reflection, like does my reflection show who I really am inside? Like does it, like, or how important, or does it though? Do you need therapy to like answer that question? Most of us, the answer is going to be absolutely, hell yes, you do.
Yes.
Because we were all given narratives about who we're supposed to be, much like Mulan, right? But it doesn't resonate with who you really feel you are inside. So I just feel like, again, I could go on and on. There's so many takeaways there, and just so HB, Moana's second choice there. If you would like given me a rundown, Moana, she's in second place, but for me, it's gonna be Mulan.
No, I feel it.
That's such a good point too about reflection. I don't remember if we talked about it in the episode, but I do think sometimes we look in the mirror and it's even like sometimes it's not even like, do we like who we see in the mirror? And it's like we go into it with these expectations about who we're supposed to see. And I like how I think that's kind of Mulan's at the beginning, that's like what Mulan is kind of does, is she's like, when will my reflection show who I am? But it's more of like who I'm supposed to be, like who all of these people and the narratives are saying I'm supposed to be, and when will that reflection look like that? And then by the end it's like, oh, this is me, short hair, tomboy, you know, fucking people up, killing Huns, defeating a whole army,
saving the
China.
entire country.
Exactly.
Yeah. Becoming
Yeah.
BFFs with the emperor.
Yeah, truly.
I loved that. So cute.
That
So cute.
Buddies.
Yeah.
like, you know, they're having like weekly lunches together
Yes.
from then on. They're, you know, they're probably watching like Bravo reality TV together. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Amber, what you had to say kind of like reminded me, or like gave me a thought, which is that I feel like it's actually a combination of what Meg said and what you said, Amber, is like, I think that each Disney princess or Disney heroine, not only just the ones we've talked about so far, but like just in general, they're so unique in their own way that they serve a different purpose, whatever it is that you're like looking for. And so like with Merida, it's obviously like that, you know, rebellion and bravery and just like, and then with Mulan, it's a little bit more about like the fight and like fighting for what is right and what you believe in. And I feel like each heroine in their own way can serve a purpose, whatever it is that you need or what you're looking for. Like you can find that in her or in one of them, which I think is really cool.
And that is the beauty of Disney magic.
Ayo.
Allie, what about you?
So when I was younger, I attached myself to Esmeralda, actually. I loved
I am so here for this conversation.
Yes. So I actually I had like a little plastic set of toys that had all the Disney princesses, but the one that I specifically loved was Esmeralda. I couldn't say her name fully when I was little, so I just called her Ezzy. That's all I could say.
That's so cute.
That's what she was. And actually, funny enough, so it like the toy broke a long time ago, but I randomly, when I was cleaning out my stuff to move, I found the tiny little tambourine that she had. And I was just like, oh my God, I know what this is from. And had a moment. But I absolutely, one of the things I love the most about her is that, like Meg, she is not afraid to be who she is, to have that strength and power to stand up, especially to the men around her, which like isn't a thing you typically see in the Disney universe, like stuff like that. Like, not only does she stand up to Frollo, but at the beginning as well to Phoebus. Like the scene of them in the cathedral is so great. I love that scene. And also she has one of the most underrated Disney songs. God Help the Outcast is so beautiful. It actually came on in my car the other day and I just vibed for a bit. But I love the strength that she has, the sass that she has, and how she's not afraid to share that. But I think the most important thing was that she treats Quasimodo like an equal. Whereas like you see every time he interacts with Frollo treats him like a child, like a lesser being. Whereas Esmeralda's like, no, like you're my friend, you're a person. Like, even though you're this mysterious person that people have only heard rumors about, like, no, you're a person. Like, and one of my favorite moments, honestly, is like when she cuts him free from the ropes and just screams out justice. That's best part of that movie. And the strength and tenacity that comes with that, I love for that character. And she's very sure of herself and who she is.
Yeah, and she's so protective of her people.
She is. Absolutely, she is.
Like a leader of her people and a protector of her people. And
Yes.
I like it, like I was just saying, like they all serve a purpose. Like in that way, she's one of the strongest Disney heroines because she is like so in the lead and in charge, and believes that everyone should be equal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool because even thinking about, we've talked about Anna, we talked about Merida, we talked about Esmeralda, Mulan, Moana, like all of those characters knowingly put themselves in danger for a higher purpose or for a greater cause.
Esmeralda almost got burned at a stake, man.
No, and
Kids
like also
movie.
even like there's a obviously like underlying theme there, like content warning of like Frollo has some like malintent there. Like, there is some sinister ulterior motives at play. As a child watching that movie, just didn't like him as a person. As an adult watching that movie, I'm like, oh my goodness. And then also, community theater. I was actually in a production of Hunchback of Notre Dame, like in a theater. Yeah. I had no significant role, but I did play like in the choir, and it was a very impactful experience. But I got to watch the whole show over and over and over again, and watch these like really like moments where like it didn't matter that I had seen the show so many times. Like every time there was like that interaction, I found myself being like, don't hurt her. Don't hurt her. Like I was so scared for Esmeralda, but like Esmeralda's like, yo, I know that you could really like fuck me up, but like I don't fucking care. Like I'm here. I'm gonna like stand up. I'm gonna do what I need to, even if it causes me harm, even if it costs me my life. I would rather die trying and fighting for what I believe in than, just sit passively in the safe zone and know that there's all these injustices going on. I can't stay quiet. And that I think is a really powerful theme that we see, especially in that movie. And then, even in Mulan, it's there as well, where there is like this theme of injustice, actually in Hercules, too, now that I'm thinking about it.
It's all connected.
It is.
It's a circle.
The circle of life.
Yeah, but I think about that a lot because leadership's kind of that's my jam. And I'm just thinking about like what amazing leadership, in these heroines to be able to just be like, look, this could literally cost me my life. And I feel like that's downplayed a little bit because, they are intended to be children's movies.
Of course they're going to make it.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to make it through this, but like I am going to sacrifice for what I know to be right, even if nobody stands with me, and that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I like what you said about not staying quiet, because as soon as you said it, the song that they added to the live action version of Aladdin came into my head. I think it's literally called I Won't Stay Quiet. Speechless is and that's one of her lines is like, I won't stay quiet and you won't see me dry. Do you not know this, Marissa?
I love this
LB?
song.
I don't know this song. I don't think
I
do. You gotta go listen.
I've only seen the live action once.
Well, if you saw it, then you at least heard it once in the movie.
Yes, okay, fair. Good point.
Fair.
It's Jasmine's big song that they added because she doesn't have a song to my knowledge that I can think of.
Like she sings in a whole new world, but it's not hers.
Right. Yeah. So for the live action, they gave her own song, and it's called Speechless, and it's about how she feels like she's always being silenced, and she's finally like giving herself a voice. So again, it's all connected, even though we haven't talked about Jasmine yet. Yeah.
That's like
I really like that song.
The Broadway version of Lion King, where they've Nala does Shadowland.
Shadowlands is gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah,
man,
that's like
they should have so many songs.
They should have put that in the live action. Yeah, honestly, they should have put that in the live action.
Live action.
Yeah, Lion King.
The animated live action.
The completely
no
CGI
animals were harmed in the making of this film.
Y'all could have just gone out into Animal Kingdom and let them do their thing, and then just mocap them out.
The most disappointing thing about that movie is that Scar's song didn't exist. And they played the
boom,
the instrumentals of it for like a moment, and then it like passed, and I was like, what? You couldn't what? I
have reinserted.
I was so upset. But anyway, we don't need to talk about Lion King.
But we can, and we
Um,
will at some point.
we
I
could.
hope.
Put Nala on the list.
Put Nala on the list.
Oh, I wanted to say too, like one of my to go off the part of the question of like the other favorite movie and stuff like that. My top favorite Disney movie of all time is the Brandy version of Cinderella.
I knew HB was gonna love
mine
that.
too.
That movie is the reason I am a performer. That made me want to do musicals, and that I absolutely love that movie. That is a comfort movie that I can quote from beginning to end. And I loved that version of Cinderella specifically because of the hope that she had constantly. Of she's just like, yeah, this is the situation I'm in, but I'm going to make the most out of it. And that's okay. And it's always going to keep getting better. And one of my favorite moments is like when she is in the market with the prince. She doesn't know he's the prince, obviously, but she says like, I just want to be treated like any girl wants to be treated. And he says, like a princess, I suppose. And she just stares him down and goes, no, like a person with kindness and respect. And I'm like, that right there.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch that movie.
Yep. Yes, you do.
Yeah, I was like, note to self.
Yeah.
The day it came on Disney Plus, I was so excited. And
Me too.
I'm also not gonna lie, they are bringing back Paula Multivan and Brandy to be in the Descendants movie that's coming out, and as Cinderella and the Prince, and I screamed, I cried, because the funniest part is, so like being a party princess, I've done a lot of Descendants parties and I was so sick of it. I was so done. And I was like, I'm not watching anything else that comes out. I don't have to do these parties anymore. Like now that I'm in my own company, I'm like, I'm not going to do these anymore. I'm done. And I don't have to watch it anymore. And then they announced that. I was like, God damn it. Like they suckered me back in. I was like, I'll watch. And I was like, y'all are doing this purely for the parents who were in my generation, who grew up with that. My first ever musical that I was in, my school did Cinderella. It was our first musical in 20 years.
Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yes.
Yep. And I got to be the stepmother. And my director literally asked me, she's like, Alex, do you know who Bernadette Peters is? And I'm like, yes, I do. She just goes, do that. She just goes, do that. I'm like,
what
done.
A dream for somebody to literally tell you to impersonate Bernadette Peters. Like,
basically. She just goes, do
amazing.
that. I'm
also,
like
have any of you seen Bernadette Peters lately? The woman literally has not aged. Like, there is some actual witchcraft going on over there. I am here for it. I'm about it. I don't know what Bernadette is doing, what planet she was, teleported here from. But, Bernadette, if you listen to this episode, I'm just going to will it out there into the universe. Like, please let me know what your skincare routine is. I would really, really love a tip or two. Thank you.
If she listens to this podcast, I think LB and I would pass away.
we just tweeted at her.
But can we also talk about how her song in the movie is not from Cinderella at all? Her song
it's not.
In the Cinderella movie is totally from something else. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely...
It's Rodgers and Hammerstein, but they're like, we can't have Bernadette Peters in a movie and not have her sing, so shove.
Let's give her a song.
It fits so wonderfully though. And honestly, like In My Own Little Corner is such a beautiful song. And also it gives that like full idea of imagination and it kind of being okay to have an imagination, even when like, at least from my tiny like 5-year-old stance watching this, like Cinderella was a grown-up and she still had that imagination to play those games and to think of those beautiful worlds and things. And I'm like, that's wonderful.
It is wonderful, but I will say that now as an adult and a therapist, I'm like, oh, you were disassociating because you couldn't deal with your traumatic life. Like, okay, like that is what was actually happening there. Like imagination is beautiful, wonderful, but then like you are living in an abusive situation and you literally need to create an alternative reality that you're existing in so that you can survive the oppression and abuse and basically being treated like a slave by these people who are your family members.
yeah.
I think that's the key
Not to bring
word
the
there.
mental health in, but like, I just got
Well,
Yes.
that's what we do. Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, hello. Have you heard what this is called?
Yeah, I know. I was actually just thinking about that. I was like, wait, they knew I was a therapist when they asked me to be a part of this.
Why do you think they invited you?
episode. Yes. We literally have a living, breathing Disney princess and a therapist. You picked your guests really well.
I wonder why. Amber, to your point, I think the key word there is survival, right? And that's something we talked
Yeah.
a little bit about, I
Mhm.
think, in our Cinderella episode and in a lot of episodes, because a lot
Yeah.
of the heroines do kind of imagine or fantasize about different realities that are usually better than the situation they're in. And I think that is the key word. Is sometimes we hear dissociation or whatever, and there's like a negative connotation, but I think at some point we also have to recognize that like that is how people have survived
Mhm.
such experiences. And if that's what got you through to the other side, fabulous, wonderful. I'm glad you had that like thread to hold on to.
Yeah, no, and that's like it is. Our bodies are incredible, like absolutely incredible. They are designed to do one thing, and that is to survive. Our physical bodies are, our mental, bodies are. So like the fact that we have so many tools that are just at that default setting going to like kick in and help us to do what we need to do to make it through is absolutely amazing. And I think that that's also where it's very interesting watching these movies as a child and then watching them as a young adult. And then obviously now I'm like, a bit of an older adult, whatever. Elder millennial. We're just sticking with that. And obviously I've been like working as a mental health professional for over 10 years now. And I'm able to look at these movies through a different lens. And, it's really interesting to me how many times like we are glorifying things that are really actually like not okay. And even like Cinderella is, I think, a really beautiful example of this where somebody is in a really like abusive situation, essentially. And also, depending on the version of this movie or show or musical or whatever that you watch, like there's a gradient there in terms of like how horrible Cinderella's situation actually is. And the only way that she's able to get out of it is essentially somebody buying her freedom, right? And it's not like necessarily in a monetary exchange, but like she does not have the resources and the support to leave that situation on her own. She literally needs somebody to come that has authority greater than her abuser to come and remove her from the situation.
Yes.
And that's really like a heavy topic if we actually think about it.
No, totally. And I'm so glad you said that because I think people look at Cinderella and they're like, oh, the prince saved her. But I love how you said that. It was someone who had greater authority than her stepmother that gave her the opportunity to leave, because that is how she could have left. And it does suck that like it was her freedom was, bought with marriage, but
yeah, and we're like, it seems in this story that the prince is nice, but like in a lot of real life examples of this, somebody will literally go from abuser to abuser because like that's their only way out. This is like one of those magical unicorn situations where like the prince really does seem to like be here and like they're breaking intergenerational cycles and all that amazing stuff. There is no domestic violence in Cinderella's marriage with the prince. We hope, all that stuff. But like in reality, it's where we blame victims of abuse a lot when they can't quote unquote do better for themselves. And we realize like that's because they don't have the resources. And I think that that's like a really prime example of like Cinderella like couldn't just walk out and leave. Where would she have gone? What would she have done? How would she have fed herself or made money? Like she had no choice. And chances are, even if the prince was not such a great guy, she probably would have left with him anyway, because maybe it would have been at least a little bit better than the reality that she had known, or maybe at least it would have been a little bit better for a little while. So it's just kind of like adding on those layers of reality on top of these movies when we watch them as adults that I think is really interesting for me. And that's also where like when people say that they're like Disney adults, I'm like, that is amazing. Like I actually don't identify as a Disney adult. I know, but no like hate, got love for everybody. But I think that that's also where like how are you engaging with these movies like as an adult? Like is it really like you know, being able to go back into that like child mind, which is also very helpful and beautiful and amazing, but also like what can we bring from those movies now with that adult lens that we can actually use them to inform, teach, educate, and empower ourselves.
And
And
even
that's
like,
my TED talk.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, you should have
And
written our blurb.
You can
like
clip that if you want to.
And even like coming back from an adult perspective, like watching The Little Mermaid again as an adult, like half the time you're like, no, Ariel, your dad's right.
Right, but as a kid, you're like, don't listen to him.
Basically.
It's better where the prince is. Like, go follow.
Yeah.
Go
Eric's-
up
yeah.
to the land.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Side note.
you are
side note.
16.
Side note about Little Mermaid. So we just recorded that episode, and then I got like down a Little Mermaid rabbit hole, and I watched the sequel,
I
and
love
it's
the
about
sequel.
her kid. I love her sequel. I didn't realize she had the kid at 18.
Yeah.
Wild.
then-
Wild.
The main
She is-
plot of the show or the movie takes place like 12 years later because it's about the kid, and she's like 12 now or something. But yeah, I'm like, oh,
She
Oh,
is
she did get married at-
canonically,
yeah.
yeah, she is
Got married at
canonically the only
16.
princess to have a child.
Yes.
Oh,
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep.
But also,
It
you
is.
know, again, if we're really thinking about things with that adult lens, like, why would you want legs so badly?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I see what you're
Means-
going for there.
Ayo.
I see.
Mhm.
So you can spread them wide. No, I'm
I'm like thinking about this even deeper now, right? Because I'm thinking like, how many women feel like they have to actually trade their voice away for being able to be seen as a sexual being? Huh? Okay. Right. So like, I'm like, now I'm like going real deep with this.
We are down a rabbit hole.
HB is like just
yeah.
shaking her
I
head.
would
But I'm
say,
thinking
though-
about that. Like,
We do address this in the Ariel episode too.
oh, I'm so glad. I
think,
can't wait to
about,
listen.
But you do have me thinking in terms of like the legs and the lust aspect of it is like, I think one thing, even though it's kind of messed up that Ariel was only 16, so to have this thought, I'm just gonna make a note of that and be like, I'm having this thought and also recognizing that Ariel is only 16. But I think that lust played a big factor in her being in love with Eric. And I also talked about this in the first episode too, because she saw him once and decided she was in love with him, which like, sure, that happens in all the Disney movies, whatever. But what we discussed in the episode was like, oh no, honey, you just were in lust with him because he is a very attractive man.
The only man you've ever
Um,
seen.
Yeah, the only one you've ever seen, and everyone else on that boat couldn't light a candle to him.
This is
And
true.
also, he was the prince. There was a statue of him on the boat. Like, of course, he's the one who you're going to be looking at, right?
And she kept that
So-
thing.
She did. She sure did. Until her
Oh,
daddy
man.
destroyed it.
Oh, Ariel. Ugh. What were you doing with
But that's
that
like now that
statue,
we're
honey?
talking. Well, Flounder got it for her. So
How
again,
did he
another
move
thing.
I asked the
That's
same
another
question.
Yeah, she was in lust, and so yeah, when you're in lust, you think differently than when you're in
Yes.
love, and yeah,
Oh,
Different
yes.
body parts
just
are
saying.
thinking.
Different body parts, you know, different neurotransmitters, different hormones, different all the things. Like, yeah. So the things
Different
that
all the
should be
things.
online or
Yeah.
offline, the things that should be like offline or online. Yeah. So
Exactly.
and especially at 16, like, oh my gosh, like
hormones.
That's
Yeah.
what I was
A
saying.
raging.
You'll have to just listen to the episode because yeah, we go into that about like, of course she's
I
gonna say
cannot
that she's
wait
in
to
love,
listen.
but-
I'm like, and obviously we're recording this, and I'm like, yeah, this will be out after that one. But I'm gonna go back and
Yep.
listen because I don't know how you guys talk about this every week. My brain now is like exploding, like literally exploding. I'm like, everything I taught was a lie. Everything I know is a lie. Everything they told me was a lie.
We
Oh.
feel like that every week, especially after watching the movie and having it be like the first time you've watched it since like adulthood. That
Mhm.
like, I'm like, Snow White for me blew my mind. I was like, I loved this movie as a kid. Who was I? I don't even recognize myself.
Actually, to be fair, Snow White always made me uncomfortable, and I never understood why. I never really
Really?
enjoyed Snow White.
Good
Yeah.
for you. Good
Never
for baby
enjoyed
child
it.
you. That's why you became a therapist. You
It was in my bones, in my blood. Had nothing to do with my dysfunctional family on top of it.
And I will say this too, like, it's really interesting to me, and I don't know if any of you experienced this as well, but I remember growing up, I had this like ingrained thing in my head that once you turn 16, your life is going to be amazing. Like that's going to be the best thing when you turn 16. Like whenever I would play pretend, like I always be like, "Oh, I'm 16." Like that was my like pretend like age that I wanted to be. And then I come to find out, like going back and watching these movies as an adult, it's because all the goddamn princesses were 16 or like around that age. I'm like, no wonder I thought like that. They were all off getting married and going on amazing adventures and like doing, I was like, no wonder I thought. And like, I turned 16. I'm like, cool, I can drive a car. I can't really go anywhere.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you, I mean, this is like huge, like content warning, but like if any of you have watched on Hulu, the Brooke Shields documentary, Pretty
Not
Baby.
yet, but I want
That
to.
is out.
Not
So yeah,
yet,
it's very, very good. Very, very good. Definitely something I would say like be in a good space. I wouldn't say like watch it right before bed. You'll have fine night of sleep. Definitely not. But if watching it with a buddy is great. Highly recommend that. But there's a lot of conversation in that documentary about what was actually going on in that time period in terms of like who was controlling the media, who was controlling the narratives. And it really was like a bunch of older white guys that really wanted to normalize the sexualization of young girls. So like, and that's true for Disney as well, unfortunately, where we're seeing like Disney princesses who are like chronologically speaking 16, but they have like these womanly bodies and they're doing womanly things, but then at the same time they're 16 and they have to like deal with like listening to what their father says, or that's like a huge, like Jasmine, Ariel, like Mulan,
especially Jasmine and the Jafar kiss.
right? Like but we're like, how old is Jafar, right? And then we're thinking like, how old is Okay, so there's like there's a lot of these things now that we really need to think about. Like that is how our brains got wired. Those were the things that we were watching on repeat as young women,
impressionable kiddos,
right? And like, and it doesn't matter if you like identify as male, female, whatever. Like that's what we were watching. That's what we were considered to accept and like to have that be normalized for us. So again, I think that this where like it's so important now to be able to like take the good bits, right? Because there's so much good bits. And I love that y'all talk about the good bits, but it's also there's this other piece of it where like somebody else was controlling that narrative. And so we have to be very cautious about how we are kind of transmuting that now as adults and how we're passing it on to the next generation.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to add like body image to that too, because it is like
so true.
All of the like you said, they're in all of these heroines are in these like womanly bodies, and not only are they like they have breasts and very tiny waists, and like when you are a young impressionable kid watching these things, a child watching these things, you internalize that that's what the desire is. Like this is what it is to be desirable. I will find a person when I turn 16, and if I have boobs and if I have a tiny waist and if I have like large hip, it's like it's very much like it was about our bodies as much as it was about like what we were seeing and being hypersexualized and like and that like hyper independence too is like and I don't think much has changed with that either, because Amber, you said you were a nanny. I am still a nanny. I still have several families that I babysit for, and one of those families has a 10-year-old girl, and she has this like hyper independence about her where she is only 10, but she behaves as though she should be treated like she is an adult. And it's hard because it's like I understand that, and I understand and respect your desire to be independent, but there are things that you absolutely cannot and should not do alone. There are things that it is not safe for you to do alone. And it's really hard to communicate that while also helping empower her and like help her make her own decisions about things. I may have mentioned this on a previous episode, but I also may not have. She read a young adult book because her school, even though she's only in the 4th grade, her school goes from 4th to 12th grade. So she has access to the library that has like everything. Yeah. And so she checked out this young adult novel. If anyone else has read it, it's called One of Us is Lying. There's also a TV show on Hulu about it. And it is
that is
far
very
too
mature.
It's
For
a
a
very
10-year-old,
mature book
yeah.
for a
Yeah.
10-year-old to read. And she really gratefully asked me to read it with her because I like to read books with her. That's like something we do together. I got her a book for Christmas that she really loved, and it was a children's like a what is it between like children's book and like young adult book? Like a kid, I guess it's just like grade school aged book.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like still a chapter book.
Yeah. Adolescent. I don't know.
It's still a chapter book, but it's actually for kids, I guess.
Yeah.
For anyone curious about that, City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab. And she loved it. And so like we do that together. We read books together. But when she got One of Us is Lying out, my first thing was like, oh my God, like, I don't know that you should be reading this. And she was like, Heather, come on. They let me check it out from the library, like all this stuff. And I talked to her mom about it. I was like, obviously, this is up to you. This is a book that like I have thought about reading as an adult, and I know it is young adult, but like I know that there are a lot of mature themes. There's death, there's sex, there's XYZ thing. And her mom had a very interesting response to it too, which is like, if she's going to be exposed to this, I would prefer it's in her own imagination rather than like being projected on her. So like rather than watching the show and seeing these things happen, if she's reading it, she's imagining the things happening, and then she can then go ask her mom or ask me like, what does this mean? And one of the things was the word whore is in that book a couple times. Like the kids call each other, like someone writes whore across one of their lockers, all that kind of stuff. And so one thing her mom said was like, yeah, over the weekend she asked me what WHOR means. And I was like, oh, okay. And so like I think there's some sort of like intersection between like being exposed to these things subconsciously and unwillingly, and being exposed to them in a way where you can learn and grow in like an empowered way. Because like when she first brought that book home, I was still like, I don't think she should read this. I don't think it's okay. But with the guidance of her parents, it was very much like, we prefer this to be the way she's exposed to it rather than, you know, a different media outlet where she's being like blatantly exposed to it. If it's in her imagination, she gets to come to us and ask what these things mean, which is a little bit better, I guess. But anyway, that's just like a big side tangent, a big like story way of me saying that like, I don't think that society has changed and shifted as much as we think it has in the past like 25 years. I think it still is focusing on like hyper independence, over sexualization, and still about women's bodies. Like women's bodies are still a daily topic of conversation, and it's exhausting and it sucks, and it's just really difficult that that's what young women have to deal with. It's what we had to deal with. And not even just young women, but like people who are growing up in this society who have to navigate all of that.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I think that, you know, obviously that's a very individual parenting choice, but there is like, they are going, you know, unless like you're living on a like homestead in the middle of nowhere with no TV and no internet and like not going to like school or having any influence from the outside, they're going to be exposed to that some way or another, like whether it's through a book that, you know, is maybe a little bit above their developmental level, or even reading into some of these themes that are happening in their quote unquote children's movie, their Disney movie. Like we were talking about, like that kiss between like Jasmine and Jafar, like he basically is kind of trying to like hypnotize her into being his sex slave, essentially. You know, it was really like what's happening there. And that I remember like watching that as a kid and being like, you know, that's like wrong. But at the same time, I didn't understand why like it was like he had to possess her, like essentially, like in a sense, and like, you know, it had to be like him or like no one else, and why she was, you know, I knew she was like a princess and everything like that, but like it's like just this whole idea of like beauty being this thing that like women don't, beauty in whatever sense, but like it's not this thing that women own, right? Like men own women. Men are the ones that are
Mm.
getting to decide. It's the fathers, it's the villains, it's the, you know, the princes, right? And like we're really here trying to be like, no, like it's actually like these heroines, these princesses, that are really getting
Yeah.
to stand up. And it doesn't matter, you know, if they have tiny waists and big boobs and a full face of makeup flawlessly and giant hair billowing out, you know, around them, which are like unrealistic beauty standards. Like they still are, you know, strong, and like that gets to be the thing that we get to focus on. And I think that's where,
Mhm.
like, if you're watching these with a child, it's having that conversation around, yes, like they look a certain way, but can we focus more kind of like on the characteristics or their tenacity or their strength or their resilience, rather than, oh my gosh, the prince fell in love with her because she's pretty.
Yeah.
And I think like nobody was having that conversation with me, you know, growing up. And so
Right.
hopefully we can kind of change that a little bit for the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love everything you guys are talking about. And that's to your point about media. I think we forget how powerful media is, and it really does dictate a lot of our societal expectations and standards and quote unquote rules and whatever. And that really was the and that's why we are using media specifically for this podcast, because it's accessible for most people, and it's because it, especially with like Disney and our childhood favorite movies, it's like a quote unquote easier way to kind of dive into those deep layers and hold space for the both and, right? Like you're talking about, Amber, going back, identifying those empowering takeaways, but then also recognizing the subliminal messages we may have gotten about beauty standards, and recognizing that this may have fed those narratives that we hold on to, and now we can unlearn them from this adult lens through which we are watching our childhood favorite things.
Yeah.
And so I think I love everything you guys are saying. That's such a good point. And just tying it back to like why we are here today doing what we're doing is so that we can create that safe space for people to have those conversations, to maybe get the wheels turning, and maybe recognizing like, oh, I recognize now that in addition to like whether it be my family, friends, even the media I was consuming kind of made me feel like I had to be this certain way or whatever. Or maybe that we had only picked up on the, like, you know, the thing coming to mind is Mulan. Maybe the only thing we did pick up was that our reflection shows, or by the end, our reflection should show who we should be and who everyone tells us we're supposed to be. And now that we're adults, we're like, no, actually, the message is that our reflection is who we are as we are authentically now, you know?
Yeah. Amber, you said something that I thought was really powerful. So I just want to like bring it back up again. That was just about like one internalized thing that we held on to was like that beauty belongs to men. And it does come up a lot, almost in every episode we've talked about. Not, I don't think in Moana, you know, pre what age are we in Disney right now, would you say? Like
I don't even know if they have a name for it.
yeah,
I know.
yeah, it's like from Rapunzel on, maybe when I don't even know when they came out, but like
That sounds about right.
I think that like, but then Rapunzel's is also about beauty, so there's that too, but it's more about the beauty of like staying youthful and young, and that's more like her mother, the parent child relationship rather than a male dominated relationship. But I just thought that that was really powerful because it is a theme that specifically happened in a lot of the Disney movies that we watched growing up, but also in a lot of the media. And as you mentioned before, that that Brooke Shields special on Hulu does address all of that. So yeah, so I just wanted to just reiterate that point because I thought it was really great.
For time, I just have two more questions for you guys.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about our favorite movies and heroines. Do you have a favorite quote from any of those movies?
Oh no. There's so many.
I was gonna say, I feel like Allie has at least been throwing them in throughout the episode.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, that's true. Amber's like,
I was gonna say, like, I think like maybe like music, like a song. I don't know. I really, because I kind of like mentioned them before, but like I really love, Let's Get Down to Business and Reflection. Those are probably like my two. But then also at like literally everything from Hercules. Like literally everything from Hercules.
That
I'm
whole
so happy
soundtrack.
they're going to be making that into a musical. It's going to be incredible. I hope that they don't drop the ball on it because it has so much potential. I actually have friends that actually saw it at Paper Mill Playhouse. So yeah.
If you haven't listened to our Megara episode,
I haven't yet.
Amber, okay, side note. We had one of the actresses who is playing, it's not a spoiler anymore, Hercules' mother in the musical. She was on our episode.
So awesome.
Hey,
Can't wait
yeah.
to listen.
And HB got
Yeah.
to go to Paper Mill and see it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, maybe you were there when my friends were there.
Yeah.
She's one of my friends.
I know
so,
they're
yeah.
still tweaking and workshopping and all that kind of stuff that they got some work to
Yeah,
do
you're
there,
gonna
but, like,
you're gonna love that episode. Yeah, Catherine, if you haven't listened yet, Catherine Allison was on our Megara episode where we talked about Hercules, and she talked about part of the development process of the Hercules musical, which is really cool.
Okay.
We have to
I
talk
know what I'm
music
listening
and
to
stuff,
later
so-
today when I'm folding laundry. Thank you.
As far as I know, the soundtrack is still baller, still amazing.
Yeah.
If anything, it's
100%.
even better. And I don't know how that's possible. Allie, you've given us a lot of quotes, but do you have a favorite song?
Oh boy. Oh,
I don't know. I'm giving you all the hard questions. Sorry.
I know. Honestly, I think it changes from day to day what my favorite is. But I will say one I do always kind of gravitate back to is Some Things Never Change from Frozen 2. That one always makes me smile, and I love all of the different like levels of it that make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside and then make you laugh and all of that. And it's one of those like really good songs of like, hey, we're okay. And like, it's okay. Like, because sometimes, and I will say I am a person where change is difficult for me. I push through, I make it through, but change is really hard. And so having a song where it's just like, no, it's okay. Like, it's okay to like where you are right now and like be sad. Like, this isn't mentioned in the song, but in a way, like later in the movie, it's okay to be sad when that change happens and like process that, which is great.
I never really thought about that before. That is that. I love that. I love that. Yay. My last question for you guys. Who do you think is the most evil Disney villain? I feel like I should ask this first. It's a weird note to end
Okay,
on.
this is so freaking easy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cruella. Okay.
Yes.
Like, okay, I can't. You think it's okay to murder puppies to make a coat? Like, no.
Yeah.
Just no. No.
Your dog mom
Like,
is
no.
showing, Amber.
No.
Your dog mom is showing.
It's so true. And that's like also, and then I would probably follow that up with Frollo, honestly.
I was going to say Frollo.
Like, they're really because to me, like, there are vulnerable members of society, and anybody who like preys upon vulnerable members of society, like if you're going to prey upon a perfectly able-bodied whatever, like, okay, that's fine. But like, if you're going to take somebody who's already struggling or helpless or can't do anything to defend themselves, like a puppy, and you're going to like exploit, harm, use, no. Like, Scar, like, okay, yeah, you're greedy. Jafar, okay, yeah, you're greedy. But Cruella is literally cruel and twisted, and like, you're so not okay. You're so not okay. And like, I did watch the live action of that. I forget. I was like flying somewhere. And so I was like, all right, we're going to give this a shot. And like the twist that they did there, like, helped me build a tiny little bit of empathy and compassion, like the littlest bit. But if we're going like, OG animated, Cruella.
And even the
down.
Glenn Close one, like,
no, the Glenn Close, she was scary. She was absolutely scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
really had me believing. I'm like, you really have no regard for life, like the sanctity of life, like whatsoever.
Fun fact.
yeah.
The 101 Dalmatians is my favorite Disney movie of all time.
You are a
Yay.
brave soul. You are a brave soul. I can't. I get worried for them every single time, even though I know they make it out okay. Every single time. I'm like, you.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So I love Cruella. Like, obviously she's horrible. I love Disney villains.
I was like,
in
I need to
general.
leave the chat. No, I'm just kidding.
Amber has left the chat.
Yeah. But I do think that like genocide of a people is worse than killing puppies. I'm just gonna say it. Genocide of a
So
group
your
of
Frollo
people.
is your
Yeah.
your
Yeah, I'm with Frollo.
Yeah.
I think both. The Libra's coming out on me. I think both are.
I think both. They're both
Those are-
equally bad.
I was
They're
gonna
the
say,
mom
they
and dad
rotate.
of badness villains.
They're
is
mom and
basically-
dad.
Genocide of any species, being, living creature is
Yes.
That's true.
horrible.
That's true. We don't have to
And-
pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I did ask the question of most evil, but they're both evil. I mean, all of the villains just like
Yeah, they
are really-
rotate with the top.
Yeah, like depending on the time, and that's the other thing too, is like depending on the context through which we're talking about evil, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say though, if we're gonna go into who has the best Disney villain song, that is
Yeah.
Dr. Facilier.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a
Or
good, that's a
Scar.
good point.
I
Scar's
love
good.
Scar song.
My thought is with the new Princess and the Frog ride that they're bringing to the parks, if the lift hill is not the portion of Friends on the Other Side where it's just are you ready as they're ticking up the
Yes.
hill, they did it wrong.
Yes.
They did it wrong.
That's such a good
Make
point.
note, Disney. Make note.
Basically,
Oh.
that's my thing. If that's not the lift hill, I'm not riding it.
I don't have any other questions. Do you guys have any other thoughts, notes, feelings before we wrap up?
I think I'm all good.
I'm good. My brain is sufficiently like
Blown.
wowed. Yeah, truly, really. Like I was like, oh, this will be a cute, fun little, discussion. And it's not to say like, obviously I know y'all get deep. I've listened to some of the other episodes, but I was not I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be able to offer this conversation, but I'm going to just show up and try my best. No, apparently I have
You
lots of
offered so
thoughts.
much.
I have lots of
Truly.
thoughts.
Lots of
Yeah,
Thank you
thoughts.
for having me on. This was really, really this was really juicy, really fun, very expansive. I really just appreciated being able to have a really like deep conversation about this stuff that often I feel like gets kind of like overlooked, but there's so much goodness and juiciness and things to look at in a new and different way, which is what I'm all about. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you both for and Meg. When you listen to this, I know you had to leave, but thank you
Meg.
all for thank you all for being here, for your time, your energy, your insights, your jokes, your laughs, your deep personal shares. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to do
Yeah.
it again. And I can't wait to have y'all again on the podcast at some point. Like for sure, we're gonna bring y'all back because
Because apparently we have
please.
thoughts and feelings and things to
Yes.
exactly.
Thank you for sharing, and I think that the audience will have a lot of really beautiful takeaways from this. So
Yes.
and happy summer break, everyone.
Happy summer
Yeah.
break. All of the links to follow the amazing guests that we've had, we're going to be in the show notes. You can follow them on
Yes.
Instagram, social media, TikTok, wherever. And we'll see everyone again in the fall.
Yay!
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content.
To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at littlebin_notbroken, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.